All right, let's get into it. Round 7, Arceus Inteleon versus Gengar Houndoom with Path to the Peaks. Both prize cards, nothing too ridiculous on either side. 2 Quick Ball being prized could hurt the early setup here for sure from Andrew, but probably won't be a huge deal. We'll see. Could be a big deal. They might not be able to set up very well early off, but we'll see how it goes. We do have Zach going first. Has the Battle VIP pass as well. Gets down double Dower. Another Battle VIP pass. So double Battle VIP pass start. That's pretty good. Another Gengar. Maybe third Dower comes out as well. Definitely second Gengar. You don't really need 3 Houndoom in this matchup. It is a nice kind of luxury to have. It goes with it. It does start to clog up your bench, though. So now it's harder to use, like, a Crobat or a second Crobat or stuff like that. So it can start to clog up your bench, and that can get annoying at some points. Or I believe Zach plays a 1 Crobat, 1 Luminion, I believe. So we'll see the Ditto start here from Andrew. The Ditto's interesting in Andrew's list. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't actually even feel like it does. It just doesn't feel like it does a whole ton. I don't know. I could be wrong. It might be fine overall, but it doesn't feel like it does a whole ton. So it's just attach pass from Andrew. Doesn't mean the hand's dead, but they could get, if there is a boss play here from Zach, that'd be pretty good. So Zach could potentially have like boss KO the Arceus, but if Zach doesn't have that, just KO the active Ditto is also just fine, to be honest. You don't really need to have a boss KO here on the Arceus. Just KO the active is fine. Oh, so for Andrew, it looks like it is like Arceus Inteleon with the Dark Pokemon. But no Sobbles down turn 1 is a pretty big deal. Triple Houndoom off the research is pretty good. Second Gengar VMAX. Does put down to double Gengar VMAX. I'm not a huge fan of going double Gengar VMAX as soon as possible because it's very easy as Gengar VMAX to like set up games where you like use 3 Pokemon instead of 2. It's still possible for Zach to utilize 3 Pokemon, but now it's a little bit harder, and it allows Andrew to kind of just like potentially just chase 2 Gengars, to be honest. There's KO2 Gengar VMAX, and that's the game. Instead of going like Gengar VMAX, or something like that. You definitely want to open up with the Gengar VMAX here, probably. And it looks like Andrew does have the Arceus and a DTE. Looks like plays a Crobat. I don't know what that is in that front. Oh, what is Andrew? I'm gonna have to wait and see what Andrew's playing here. I actually don't know exactly what Andrew's playing. That looks like a Gengar, but I can't tell. Finds a 2 off the Starbirth. That looks like a Gengar, but I actually have no idea what Andrew is playing, to be honest. It is a Gengar, so it's Arceus Gengar. Okay, it is Arceus Gengar. Has a Path to the Peak to shut down any Crobats or Luminions. And they've already used their V-Star power, so they're kind of done with that. And they'll be able to get the hit here. They bench a Dunsparce. Zach, of course, could be playing a Stonejourner or... Yeah, probably Stonejourner. I'm actually going to check if Zach is playing Stonejourner. And it looks like, yes, Zach is playing the Stonejourner. So you could like harder treat the Gengar and then go back from that. Has to switch into the other Gengar VMAX. And then research. I don't know why switch into Gengar VMAX, though. Could have switched into a Houndoom, and it basically does the same thing. I guess it's just if you get the hiding energy, you can retreat. And does get the hiding energy. But if you whiff, though, you probably would have rather have sent up a Houndoom and just given him a 1 prize Pokemon for the turn. And even if you put a hiding energy on a Houndoom, it's not the end of the world, I feel like. So I wouldn't have, on Zach's side, I think I would have liked to have seen maybe send up a Houndoom there. Because if you whiff here and you leave this Gengar in the active to take another hit, you could start to get into some trouble here as Zach. So I wouldn't have hated to see just a Houndoom go up instead. But this does make it so that the energy's there, set up, ready to go for the next Gengar VMAX. And already Zach's in a pretty good spot. Gonna get the KO on this Arceus. Go down to 2 prize cards left. Has the Stonejourner as well. Bench the Stonejourner. So hiding energy and quick ball. And actually didn't have a ton of outs. Because if they get a switch, it doesn't matter. They only had 2 hiding energy in the deck. Zach only had 2 hiding energy in the deck. So it wouldn't have been that big of a surprise to me if Zach had actually whiffed there. Because one of them was prized. And if you get a switch, it doesn't matter what you send up. But if you don't get a way to move, then you would have rather had a Houndoom stuck in the active than a Gengar, I'm pretty sure there. Has to go read the Stonejourner. All right. And then... like Tool Scrapper, I think. Here comes another research. Looking for a Gengar VMAX of their own. Otherwise, they probably just lose the game. So has the VMAX. Needs a little bit more than this, though. Needs at least an energy. And probably wants to build up a little more. I actually don't know. Okay, so Andrew is not playing. Andrew's playing B-Barrel as well. There's no Inteleon, actually. There's no Inteleon. I thought this was the Inteleon deck, but no, Andrew's playing B-Barrel. It's like Arceus Gengar with B-Barrel, so it's similar to... It's like Andrew's deck, but different. It's quite a bit different. They have paths instead of the Collapse Stadium. I don't know if Andrew plays Hyper Potion. I don't think they do. So closer to something like Drew's list, the winning list that Drew used to win the tournament. There's the Guru. Do they have the energy is the question. If they don't have energy here. Oh, no, they already had the energy, I guess. Okay, they already had the energy, so they're good. They get the knockout. Now, Zach, I believe, can just win this turn, but would need quad single strike energy, which is a lot. Because Zach actually plays Tool Jammers, not Choice Belts. Oh, wait, there's the Stone Journer gets a knockout. Wait. Oh, Dunsparce doesn't get rid of the weakness on, what's it called? Okay, Stone Journer actually KOs that. Okay, this actually seems like a pretty bad matchup for Andrew then, actually. I thought Dunsparce was like removing Gengar's weakness or something, but it only removes it for colorless Pokemon. This actually seems like it's a pretty bad matchup then for Andrew. I guess if you get the Arceus out with the Dunsparce and some Big Charms, you might be okay. So that's really what you have to play into pretty heavily here as Andrew then. You have to play into Arceus, the Dunsparce, because otherwise the Stone Journer just like knocks out your Gengar and you're just in trouble. For some reason I thought the Dunsparce was also protecting Gengar, but that would be like really good. Excuse me, that'd be really, really good. All right, Andrew will get to go first here, which is a pretty big advantage in this matchup. Going first is a pretty big deal, as long as you can find that energy for your Arceus. As the Arceus probably has an energy in the hand. Okay, has the energy. I see a Quick Ball. I see an Ultra Ball. So everything you could possibly want here, I think, for Andrew is in the hand. Gets rid of the Choice Belts, which means now that Andrew can't KO a Gengar next turn. I don't know how many Choice Belt Andrew plays. But that seems like a pretty good option to have next turn. It has a boss in hand as well, so could have just gone KO. Excuse me, KO Gengar V on the next turn. Quick Balls for a Gengar. Was thinking about getting the Dunsparce, so it's still going to go the Gengar route. The Choice Belts seem really important, though. I don't know. Even this Choice Belt seems pretty important. Because this Choice Belt, like if you're setting up Gengar, you can do 250, but you can do 280. You can do 280 with a Choice Belt. And then if they take 2 pings from their own Houndooms onto their Gengar VMAX, you can KO it. So this Choice Belt, this card of this Choice Belt seems pretty big here. And immediately commits one to the active. But you don't know if this Gengar is going to be in the active next turn. I think there is an Ultra Ball. Actually, there's an Arceus V-Stars plus Boss in the hand for Andrew. So I'm not a huge fan of that play there from Andrew getting rid of that Choice Belt. I think the Choice Belt is actually like a pretty big deal in this matchup. I guess going Gengar does still make sense to go Gengar in this matchup, but it's going to be really hard for your Gengar VMAX to KO their Gengar VMAX unless you have... it's going to be really hard for your Gengar VMAX to KO their Gengar VMAX unless you have a Choice Belt. Like, you almost need a Choice Belt to get that knockout. Looks like a really good start here from Zach. Quick Balls away, a Dower. Gonna go get a Crobat or a Luminion. Looks like they go with Luminion for research. And they have Switch as well, so they could switch into... I don't really like getting the Dower and then discarding it, because you probably want to switch into a Houndour here, I would assume. Yeah. Goes into the Dower, but now only has one Dower in play. I like the Path to the Peak play here. But I think they could have just like not discarded that Dower, because you'd want to draw into a Houndour here. Draws into one anyways. But it's still possible you'd even want another Houndour, to be honest. Now we go over to Andrew. Has the V-Star, has the DTE, has the Boss, so still has, has everything for the KO. Okay, well, you're... so, I mean, if the players don't care, it doesn't really matter. You're not... I don't know, maybe they didn't look at their prize cards yet, but... You're not supposed to see your prize cards before you go search search for your energy. You're supposed to search for your energy first. Yeah, they did see them. Okay. I mean, it looks like there was no problem with it. That can be like... I mean, that's... Like, I wouldn't let my opponent take that back personally. You're supposed to go search the energy first. I mean, seeing your prize cards and then seeing it... It might change where you'd want... How many energy you'd want to take, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So... yeah, so shouldn't, I mean, it's not a huge deal. Like, But yeah, make sure you go finish your attack before you go to draw your prize cards. You're supposed to complete your attack before you draw your prize cards. So, yeah, you're supposed to complete your attack before you draw your prize cards. Not a huge deal here. Not a huge deal here. It's like the same thing that they would want to have happen anyways, but... All right, over to Zach. Zach can get the KO here. Needs one more Houndoom, I believe. As attached single strike energy, Houndoom to the active. And this is why the choice belt on the bench was so important. Because now the second Houndoom has to get used to KO the active Arceus here. And then this would have 280 left. And then if this becomes like, if you top deck the VMAX here as Andrew and you kept this choice belt instead of discarding it, then all of a sudden you can knock out this VMAX and you can actually be in a good spot. But it looks like there's a whiff from Zach, so it's just going to be a hit into the Arceus. So that sets up really well for Andrew to have like just another turn to do stuff, because definitely not in a great spot. With having just no draw power, basically. But because of that, it's actually not in a terrible spot. Here comes an Ultra Ball. You can grab another Gengar or an Arceus, set that up. You probably want to go with an Arceus here because you don't want to play into Stone Journer too heavily and kind of force them to have Gengar VMAXs every single time. So probably going to go with an Arceus. I like that grab. Have the option of the one Gengar, to be honest. Having the one option of the Gengar is really, really good because it sets it up so that you can get that big one-hit KO into their Gengar VMAX if they put 40 on it. If you have the Choice Belt, which they got rid of on that quick ball, which I think they could have waited and just not quick balled, basically. They could have gone attach active pass. Also, because by putting the Gengar V in play, if you just don't put the Gengar V in play, your opponent, because like sometimes your opponent just has an awkward hang where all they have is boss. But if you bench something for them to boss, then they can boss it. But if you never bench something for them to boss, they literally can't boss it. So yeah, I don't like that quick ball of the Choice Belt from Andrew. I think it's too important for how the trade can go back and forth. And then just putting something in play in general can make it awkward for you if their only supporter in hand is a boss. Like if they have boss in like kind of a deadish hand, they can just go, all right, boss Gengar. If you can't move it, then it gets stuck for the turn, and then I get, you know, more time to top deck or set up from there. So looks like there might be a boss in. No, it's a judge from Andrew. Probably have to kind of play the judge here. I think there's anything telling you that Zach's hand is dead here. So so it goes with the judge. Ultra Balls for the, I don't know, Dunsparce or the whatever it's called there, the Arceus. Judge for 4, and then we'll probably just see a hit into this Gengar, and then set up the next Arceus. Has an attachment for the Arceus as well. Then here comes the attack from Arceus. I don't know if I like that energy attachment for turn, because if you have 3 in the deck, then you can just pull 3 out of the deck and keep 1 in the hand, which I think is like just a better trade-off to have it like that. I'm not sure what was in the deck, though. So this is actually getting really good. This is like just setting up really well for Andrew. Andrew's kind of just like a boss away from winning this game. If this Gengar stays in the active here from Zach, which I'm sure Zach probably wants to move this Gengar. I don't even know if that would make that big of a difference, though. Can you attack with Houndoom here? Can you do enough damage with Houndoom, maybe? Zach could also try and do a weird play where they put them to sleep for a turn and try and move their Pokemon around a little bit to try and set up themselves up in a better prize trade situation. But attacking with the VMAX here is just like terrible. It's just like not good. You knock out with the VMAX, and then they definitely can knock out your VMAX back. And then you have to try and get a KO on their Pokemon. And then if they just have boss, they always win. So I don't think there's really much else Zach could have done, but looking for a different line of play there would have been nice. There's a V-Star off the top, so has that to attack with. Gengar V on the bench. But yeah, it's going to be attacked from the V-Star here. And then if Andrew just has the boss next turn, the game is over. The boss is in hand. Whoa. Okay, no. All right, I don't hate this. I don't hate this, actually. Because if you boss right now, if you do boss right now as Andrew, if they attack with the Gengar VMAX, you win. If they attack with the new Gengar V, you win anyway. So yeah, this makes sense. It makes sense. Do the boss play now. The only line of play that this does open up for Zach, though, now, is Zach can now send up a Houndoom or a Houndour and then start to build up a fresh Gengar. But also, if Zach plays Marnie and you don't play the boss, then you don't have the boss. But Zach can still force you to have another boss this turn anyways. So it almost feels like this was just a mistake then from Andrew, because Zach's still gonna force you to have boss here. Like so when this play happens, Andrew's like, oh wait, you can't attack with Gengar VMAX, you can't attack with Gengar V, because then I just win with my Gengar. But that means Zach has to go, okay, I guess I'll send up my Houndour to the active, and I'll start to build up a new Gengar, and then Andrew needs to have another boss. Has Starburst? No, they don't have Starburst because there's Paths of the Peak in play. I don't think either player plays a way to bump Paths of the Peak. I could be wrong on that. Andrew could play a Punkaboo. I'm pretty sure they only play Path for Stadium, though. So now it becomes, now Zach sends up this Houndour and then starts to build up a new Gengar. is the play for Zach. Or you could send up the Gengar to get the energy off the Gengar, to be honest. You maybe need to get these energy off the Gengar. So maybe you should have sent up this Gengar to get these energy off the Gengar. That might have actually been the better play here from Zach. But actually grab Stonejourner. So maybe he has the boss KO on the benched Gengar. That would also be a pretty crazy play. And just scoops. Okay. And then just scoops. Yeah. If they had a Gengar V in the deck there, Zach could have grabbed Gengar V, bench Gengar V, let Houndoom get knocked out. They would also need a Gengar VMAX on the next turn. So it's a pretty sketchy situation for Zach overall, definitely. But the boss from Andrew felt weird because like it's possible they just force you to have another boss. And if you have to have another boss, then playing that first boss never kind of made any sense to play anyways, to be honest, right? So I don't know. I don't love that play there from Andrew. I feel like maybe you should have just KO'd the active, look for the boss on the next turn. Because otherwise, Zach's just going to force you to have another boss at some point anyways, right? So definitely didn't love that play from Andrew. I feel like you probably could have just like knocked out the active, held the boss. But then ended up going fine for Zach anyways. All right, so take a look at the prize cards. See if there's anything huge. Stonejourner's prize, but it's in the first couple of prize cards. So by the time Gengar gets set up for Andrew, you could definitely have access to the Stonejourner. So that's not huge. I mean, 1 Urn, 1 VIP pass being prized. I guess Zach only does play 3 Urn. So could be something there. And on the other side, nothing really too relevant, I don't think, being prized as well. So Stonejourner is the only thing that's like kind of relevant, but it's in the first 2 prize cards, so nothing huge as far as the prize cards go. Of course, depending on how the game goes, anything could be a big deal that is prized, but it looks fine for right now. Crobat start for Andrew is terrible. And did Zach choose to go second? That's interesting. Zach chose to go second? That is definitely curious. Passed. Oh, did he draw pass? Oh, okay. I was so confused. I was like, what? There's a Doom. There's a Path. There's a Marnie. Okay, okay. It was a draw pass. Okay. That makes way more sense. So 1 Houndoom out. Here comes a Quick Ball. So not in a terrible spot for Zach. Can still get the first 2 prize knockout, which is the most relevant thing. Like if Andrew knocks out a 1 prize Pokemon next turn, it's actually not that big of a deal. So there's still possibility for Zach to get the first 2 prize knockout here, which could put them in a pretty good spot still. And they had the Path to the Peak plus Marnie, so that's a pretty good combo to have as well. No Starbirth access, so that could be what is Andrew's kind of betting on having access to as well. And if they don't have access to that, it could put Zach in a really good spot. We'll see. Quick Ball away the basic Dark. Let's see what they go for here. Primate Wisdom is prized, and they can't grab anything like... Well, the Crobat's in the active. They probably only play the 1 Crobat. And with Primate Wisdom being prized, they might have no access to any kind of draw support here. Ends up going with the Dunsparce. That might be because that's the only thing that's worth grabbing here. There might not be anything else that's worth grabbing here. We'll see. What does the rest of the hand look like? 2-card hand, another Arceus. Maybe a Research. Research is away the Arceus. I don't hate that, though, because you do have to play around the Fear and Panic, of course, of the Gengar. It's like another thing you have to play around. Finds themselves a Quick Ball. Looks like Quick Ball away a Path there. And gets the Bidoof. This is the first time we've actually seen the Bidoof here from Andrew in all the games so far. I think it must just be like a 1-1 B-Barrel, because we haven't seen much of it at all. Got the Arceus, but of course, no Starbirth and no energy attachment for turn. So that's definitely going to make things awkward for Andrew. There's the Research from Zach. They did get rid of an Urn, so that other Urn being prized could be a pretty big deal. All you want to do this turn, though, as Zach, is just attack. And with 3 V Pokemon in play, you can do it with a Fear and Panic. You don't even need to get the bigger G-Max Swallow Up. But getting this first 2 prize knockout is the biggest deal in this matchup. Ooh, hiding energy to the bench. Oh, okay. So they could have actually attacked this turn, but are definitely fine with playing the waiting game, and I think I like that. So they could have put Hiding Energy active, Single Strike Roar to the Gengar, attack with Gengar. If they had a VMAX, they even could have attacked with the VMAX, to be honest. If they had the VMAX, I think they definitely should have attacked. But I think this is an indication that Zach whiffed the VMAX, because you could have gone Hiding Energy active, evolve this Gengar VMAX, probably just don't Single Strike Roar, just hold the energy in the deck, bring it up, Fear and Panic knockout, then Single Strike Roar, G-Max Swallow Up knockout, and then G-Max Swallow Up knockout their last Gengar to close out the game. But I think it's fine to not want to attack with the Gengar V into the Crobat, depending on what your hand is. You could still be more aggressive with winning the prize trade that way, but then it's going to be harder to set up your next Gengar to deal with their Arceus. So if they had the VMAX, I like attacking to the Crobat. But without the VMAX, I don't mind just kind of chilling here as Zach. Because you know your opponent just didn't have a hand that could attack last turn, so you know they probably don't have a boss knockout this next turn. Although, I mean, they do have the potential for the B-Barrel because they have the B-Do, so it is possible that they actually get there, to be honest. This time, there's the Choice Belt to the Gengar. That's super important, I think. There's an Ordinary round. I actually recover some, what was it, Gengar, an Arceus, and an Energy. All right, and then we should see the... Oh, we might see the knockout here on this Houndoom. Ideally for Andrew, you want to see a boss play. Like, Andrew wants to boss KO something here. There's a research, so no boss. Just going to be able to get a knockout on the Houndoom. But Zach's very set up to be able to deal with pretty much anything, to be honest. Well, I guess if they don't have if Zach doesn't have an energy this turn, they might not be able to knock out this Arceus. So maybe it was a mistake from Zach to actually attach the hiding energy. They maybe should have just held the hiding energy and just used Single Strike Roar to the Gengar and then just kind of waited. Because now it's very possible that Zach can't actually get this KO here because I just don't have the energy for it. Of course, they need the VMAX as well. There's a Marnie, so they have to find themselves a VMAX and an energy to actually get the knockout here. Or they might have to just put him to sleep and hope that sticks. So yeah, probably holding the hiding energy last turn if you're not going to attack that turn is probably correct, just to make sure you have more energy in play. There's an Ultra Ball, so you could get the VMAX. Does get the VMAX, or you could have gotten a Houndour. The fact that they're getting the VMAX makes me think that they probably have the energy here. Just double VMAXs, retreats, and then are we just seeing a Fear and Panic? Oh, is the Fear and Panic enough? Oh, Andrew benched an Arceus. I didn't think Fear and Panic was enough. Andrew definitely should not have benched this Arceus here. That was definitely a mistake on Andrew's part. If you don't bench that, Fear and Panic does not get the knockout. But as soon as you bench that, Fear and Panic gets the knockout. Yeah, should have just hit with Arceus and set up your Gengar. There was no reason to have actually benched this Arceus. You could have even attached a Crobat, to be honest. You could have set up an energy on a Crobat. Because Crobat actually can set up a 2-hit KO on a Gengar to then go into an Arceus. Like, you poison them, Choice Belt. I don't know, maybe it sounds pretty close in my head. But benching that Arceus, I think, is definitely a mistake from Andrew. I didn't even realize Fear and Panic was getting the knockout. Because you have to make your opponent work as hard as possible. You can't just kind of give them free knockouts at this point. Because if you give them the knockouts, Zach kind of always wins the prize trade. So you can't really afford to give them free knockouts like this. And now because the second Houndoom damage wasn't built up on either of the Gengars, like this Gengar here from Andrew just can't knock out a Gengar VMAX. Like, even with the choice, it has the Choice Belt this game around. In the first game, did not attach the Choice Belt. But it doesn't really even matter anymore because there's not two Houndoom damage buildups on either Gengar. So yeah, I didn't even realize the Arceus was in play there until right now. Air Balloon to the active. I see a switch in hand here, I think, from Andrew. And then maybe a research. Just gonna go Beebs for 2, and you basically just have to hit the active here. Probably ideally with an Arceus and maybe set up some more energy in play. Find yourself a DTE. If not, you can put them to sleep with the Gengar and hope they don't have a switch card. I don't hate that play. Obviously, it's not a play you want to make. They have the Ultra Ball, so they can get the Gengar VMAX, so they could just hit with a Fear and Panic themselves. Not going to one-hit KO it. You are going to set up the 2-hit KO, but you're definitely behind as far as the prize trade goes. I guess for the current situation, though, Zach can't one-hit KO your Gengar. So that you got that going for you, I guess, here as Andrew. Like, Zach cannot one-hit KO your Gengar. Has the DTE as well, so has all the options here. But Zach can one-hit KO your Arceus. So I don't like this play here from Andrew, I don't think. Because Zach can one-hit KO the Arceus, but could not one-hit KO the Gengar, I believe. But I guess Andrew doesn't know probably at this point that Zach does not play Choice Belt. Andrew probably doesn't know that Zach is playing Tool Jammer and not Choice Belt. But you're kind of just giving them a knockout here if they just have an energy. I feel like you need to make them work for it. It's like, okay, you might have the Choice Belt play, and if you have it, all right, sure, you got me. But if you don't, I'm kind of, because now as Andrew, you're just putting your opponent on a KO active plus a boss away on the Crobat to win the game. They do need 2 energy. Like, Zach still needs to find 2 energy to make these plays happen. But that's not that much, especially if, like, they find an energy this turn to knock out the Arceus. They can, like, play Research or Marnie to get the knockout and then bench a Houndour. So then they're just a Houndour away to the other Gengar plus boss KO Crobat to win the game. But if you send up the Gengar, you make them, you're like, okay, if you have Choice Belt plus an energy, all right, you got me. But if you boss KO this turn, it's that much harder to set up the Houndoom for your next Gengar, or to even get the energy in general. So I don't like this play from Andrew. I think Andrew definitely should have gone with the Gengar VMAX here, because once again, it just makes your opponent work harder. Like, Andrew is basically feeding his opponents a knockout here, it's just like, okay, knock this out, and then you have one boss and you win the game. Congratulations, right? Instead of being like, send up the Gengar, right? You have to work that much harder for this knockout, and then you also need the boss next turn. So if you whiff the knockout on this turn, if you boss around it this turn, you also need a boss around it next turn. And then if you whiff the knockout on if you hit the knockout on my Gengar, I was giving you the Arceus anyway, so you're still just a boss away from winning. But if you whiff the knockout on my Gengar, all of a sudden I can win the game. I'm winning the prize trade potentially. So it makes no sense for Andrew to not attack with Gengar here and attack with Arceus instead. It basically is like it's just making it so much easier for Andrew or for Zach to win the game by sending up the Arceus here. It allows Zach to just go just play super heavily for the boss play. And here we go, bench the Houndour, play the research, higher chance to get the energy now. They get the knockout, and then there's a boss away from winning. It looks like maybe with the energy, though. I don't see it in the hand. And yeah, just a fear and panic. So we did end up whiffing the energy, but if they just get the energy, they get the knockout. But if the Gengar's in the active, as far as Andrew knows, they need energy and choice belt, right? So just make them work harder. Because it's 2 knockouts no matter what. If Zach knocks out the Gengar, it's the same thing as knocking out... Like, if Zach knocks out the Gengar and a Dunsparce, it's basically the same thing as knocking out an Arceus and a Crobat, except this was a harder combination to kind of knock out. I guess knocking out Dunsparce is a little bit harder than knocking out the Crobat, but not for the board state Zach has, where this Gengar already has 2 energy on it. It's really not going to be that much harder for Zach to knock out a Crobat compared to a Dunsparce, so... Yeah, I don't like this play from Andrew of not attacking with the Gengar. Ends up working out, though. Zach does with the energy, and now this Gengar in the active is probably going to go down, and then Andrew will be down to 2 prize cards. Did they just boss the Houndour? Does that ever make sense? Does Andrew have 5 prize cards left or 4? But would that ever make sense either? I guess Andrew is maybe going to retreat attack with Gengar, but then they're still 2 knockouts away from winning the game. But I guess they'll have to 2-hit KO this Gengar anyways. Goes after the Houndour. I don't hate this play because it actually on Andrew's side of the field, it is going to be awkward to take enough to not attack 3 more times to win the game anyways. The problem with this now though is if Zach just has an awkward hand as well, Zach can send up this other Gengar with just 2 damage counters on it, and then Andrew has to go boss. He has to go like 3 bosses in a row. But if you just knock out the damage Gengar VMAX, then you have to go boss tower. It also, if you knock out the Gengar VMAX, Zach can't put down a 2 prize Pokemon next turn. For whatever reason, Zach might want to put down a 2 prize Pokemon next turn. Zach can't put down a 2 prize Pokemon next turn, or Zach loses to boss. So you would take away options from Zach by doing that. So I'm not a huge fan of this boss play here. This seems pretty weird to me from Andrew. See how it plays out, though. We should see how it plays out. Maybe they got a plan here that I don't see, but I'm not a huge fan of this. Huge fan of this boss play here. We'll see what happens. There's the retreat, and I think we will end up seeing an attack with the Gengar. Okay, so the Gengar gets the knockout, but now we have 4 prizes left for Andrew, and just 4 on Zach's side. So Zach can do the boss play, but like I said, Zach can just leave this Gengar VMAX in the active, and if it ever just gets hit and not KO'd, which currently Andrew can't 1-hit KO this active Gengar VMAX ever, then you end up in a situation where it's like another turn for Zach to play the game. So I don't like not just taking... If you take the 3 prize knockout, then you can go boss, win. But now on Andrew's side, I mean, you have to go boss, which is like an extra boss turn you have to have. So you have to have 3 bosses in a row for Andrew. Otherwise, you're just taking another turn to win the game here. So I'm not a huge fan of that boss play from Andrew. I don't think it really does anything to remove a Dower from play either. Like, I don't know what you're gaining from that as Andrew to like potentially set Zach behind. Like if Zach has boss, the game is literally over. And then even if Zach doesn't, even if they hit your Gengar VMAX, you have to have boss on your side. So unless Andrew has boss, but then why not knock out the other one first? Because then if you get Marnie, the chance of you finding the boss is higher if you have +1 boss in your deck. So using that initial boss doesn't make a ton of sense until you've just knocked out the Gengar VMAX to begin with. So Marnie's like always a factor in that as well. It's like if you have triple boss in your hand, it's like, okay, you have to play, but then what if your opponent Marnies you? And if you don't play that first boss, and if they still Marnie you at that point, now you have 3 bosses in your deck instead of 2, and then the B-Barrel has a higher chance to draw into those bosses. So we'll see how it goes. It looks like Zach is retreating to the damaged Gengar. And then Single Strike Roars to the bench. Does this one KO? It doesn't, right? 3 Pokemon. Oh, wait, does it? Am I confused here? Oh, there's a boss. Okay, there's a boss there from. Wait. No. Okay, Zach had the boss. Okay. I was confused there for a second. Boss. Okay, there was a boss. There was a boss. Now we get a boss here from. Yeah, there was a boss on the Arceus. KO the Arceus with the Gengar. And now it looks like Andrew does have another boss here. And they're going boss the bench Gengar. And now that Zach Houndoom damaged the bench Gengar, this does become like a viable target for Andrew to chase. The question is, does Andrew need to chase this Gengar, I guess? If you KO the... I guess you KO the active Gengar. No, this goes the same way, though, for Andrew. Andrew actually shouldn't knock out either of these Gengars. If you knock out one of these Gengars, it allows you to actually get 4 single strike energy on a Gengar and KO your Gengar. So it's a mistake for Andrew to actually ever KO either of these Gengars. What Andrew should do here is actually boss KO the Houndoom, I think, which is like what the initial plan, which is like kind of ties into their play from the last turn anyways. I'm also not sure if Zach should have actually single strike roared to this Gengar at all. Because when you single strike roar to this Gengar, you can't leave it in the active to wall for a turn. Like you could have if it had just 2 less damage counters on it, you can like hit with it into literally anything and it can't be return KO'd. And that potentially gives you +1 turn to play the game as Zach, to find a boss, to take the 2-hit KO on a Gengar, whatever, right? But as soon as you put this Houndoom damage here, you just lose that ability to hide behind something for a turn and force your opponent to have that last boss. So this doesn't make a ton of sense to me on Zach's side. But then also Andrew boss bringing this up to KO it also doesn't make any sense, because now Zach can go earn Houndoom or just earn Research Houndoom and then put 4 single strike energy on this next Gengar. So KOing either Gengar here as Andrew is just not great. Maybe that's a reason to have not KO'd this Gengar initially the turn previously when I was talking about KOing that Gengar. Is then you could have that quad single strike energy potential. So on this turn, I guess as Andrew, you should still probably chase the Houndoom here. As the play, just chase Houndoom, knock that out. As soon as these single strike energy hit the discard pile, all of a sudden you can go quad single strike energy from Zach, as long as there's an urn left and a Houndoom. I don't know. They could be out of urn. There could be no urn left. We'll see. There is one prize, and we did see one get discarded earlier, so it's possible. But I see the urn in the hand, so urn, single strike roar, and then there's just the boss KO on the Crobat. Okay, so that play didn't ever actually end up coming up, anyways. But I think there could have been some different lines of play taken here from both players. Yeah, like Zach accelerating that extra single strike energy on the bench there. In my head, doesn't make a ton of sense. Maybe they had a line they were setting up there behind it. And then on this side, I guess boss KO Houndoom is like better than what I thought it was initially, because then that stops the quad single strike energy play. Because if you knock out either Gengar, I guess on that last turn, I guess if I can find it, I'll go find it. Is this the turn where they went boss up the Houndour? Yeah, because if you knock out this Gengar, I guess what happens is you could get quad single strike energied. But it's just like so unlikely to happen. But I guess you do get to play around it, right? It's unlikely to happen, but you do get to play around it. So maybe it is correct from Andrew, as long as you have triple boss left, but you do need triple boss left. That's the thing. It's like, is it worth it to give them that line and be like, okay, if you have that, that's fine. Because then on Andrew's side, you do have to go triple boss to be able to win the game. So it's one of those things where, like, what is the higher chance play to win the game? Are you going to find triple boss more often than your opponent finds the quad single strike energy onto one of the Gengars? Because if you just KO this damaged Gengar on the bench here, then they can put quad single strike energy here. On the next turn, though, it would have to be like earn, research into 1, double Houndoom 2 more over there. But it is possible. And then if Zach just chooses to put no single strike roars onto this Gengar, you can't KO it next turn anyway, so you can't win next turn as Andrew. But you could just like kind of, and then Zach could just try to attempt to 2-hit KO your Gengar or wait for their. Like I said, because they went boss Arceus. I don't know. Still KOing the active still seems pretty good to me. I don't know. It's not terrible either way. But yeah, Zach walks away with a win. Yeah, Zach putting the extra damage here felt weird as well. But then Andrew going and chasing this Gengar also just felt weird. It feels like at that point, you know, because of the quad single strike energy, if Zach ever has boss, Zach just wins anyway, so that's kind of like whatever. But if he ever whiffs, it's not. All right, but that's that one. Zach wins. Definitely interesting how it ended up going down. Let's get into the next one, though.